allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, celebrate high school volleyball state champs.
All right, so Coach Cagle.
Okay, since it's almost Christmas, it's become very good.
Thank you
Because
so
we
much.
know this is what you want on your shelf, so you can
Absolutely.
So fun.
smile and cheer us on as you're getting ready in the morning.
Thank you.
I know you're gonna
That's
put
so
this on
awesome.
your front desk. You already know. But listen, we just wanted to say thank you guys so much for your support, not just this season, but through the 20 years of this program and just how far we've come. And this was such an exciting season, and I still am enjoying all the different celebrations and the invites that we get to come to. And so I hope the memories that I have, that these girls get to hang on to those same memories and are enjoying just all of the celebrations too. And so I just want to hang on to it as long as we possibly can. And so, but yeah, I'm super proud of them. I've got Ileana, Jaden, and Gracie with me tonight, but they've got activities all over the place. I have some girls, probably a little over half of the team, who have already started their club practices, and so they're already in that club season and prepping for the next school season and all of that. So, but a couple things that I wanted you guys to be aware of that happened after our season ended. Skylar Brady and Jaden Reed were both nominated to the all-conference team and the Little All-City team. And then Jaden was selected as an all-stater and will get to play in that game in July of this next summer. So just lots of things happened that were huge things after our season ended. And so, but yeah, I'm super proud of them, and obviously Jaden that is graduating and just what she's meant to our program. But luckily she's not going very far. We can go right across the street and watch her play over at SNU. But again, thank you guys so much for all the support that you all have given us over these years. So you guys want to say anything?
Just thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you guys.
Congratulations.
If you guys haven't, come here, I've got to tell this story. So if you haven't heard it, I tell everybody this. So the very first time we ever went to the state tournament was in 2012. And it was rough. I mean, we were just excited to be there. But Kelsey was my starting libero that season. And so we went in 2012. We got beat by the top-ranked team. We went in as the last seed, and that was the last time, it was actually Elgin that we played. That was the last time a public school had won the state tournament until this year when we won it again. But she has been a part of the beginning of the state tournaments and then actually winning the state tournament. So
Awesome.
I think that's a pretty cool story.
Okay. Item 4, presentation and discussion of facilities improvement plans by Detroit D. Rhodes and Company.
So, tonight is going to be primarily about numbers. So we've been looking at drawings and renderings and some of the hopefully good to look at nice stuff. Tonight is more about hard to look at sometimes numbers. So you've each got a handout, a couple of handouts. One is specifically for the STEM building, and the other one deals with athletics. So I'll kind of walk you through that. Just you've got a lot more detail in front of you. This is more just at a kind of a high level. So we've shown you Lingo's estimate in the past at the last board meeting, and so we're not going to review all that again, but this is the basically completed overall project budget. So we've gone through and have proposals in place, at least estimated proposals in place for all the different engineering groups that'll be on here. So soft costs for this project are just around $200,000. And then construction costs, this is the 1.6, almost 1.7 that we talked about last time in terms of the actual amount of hard construction. So that number's made up of, again, because we're still in a very preliminary phase, it's made up of an estimate from parts. I mean, they literally take off everything that we've drawn and create about a 15-page estimate. But because there's still a lot of unknowns about the design and unknowns about the construction, they plugged in some built-in contingency right there as a part of that. So the total right now for the placeholder is 1.67. The last thing, we had all those numbers last time. The last thing that we've been working on to kind of fill it in is all of the, what we generally just refer to as additional owner costs. So it's not construction, it's not design and engineering, it's all the things that make the building work for students and teachers. So it's everything from, and in this case, this building is going to be highly intensive in terms of technology. So everything from camera systems and cabling and intercom and wireless access points, networking. You've got audio video systems for the esports space, utilities, furniture, building permit. Now, building permits actually in this case is zero. We confirmed with the city that they don't charge building permit fees. We do have a safety review that's a minimal amount there. We've got some survey costs, geotechnical engineering, and then construction materials testing is what happens during construction. So we believe that this is kind of an all-encompassing budget that covers everything we can possibly think of that would happen on this project. The other owner costs are a little over $300,000. By the time you compile all those numbers together, we're at about $2.22 million. Now, the reason I've got another number on there is because we're not building it today. I think we're anticipating potentially voting it in April. We're gonna need probably 3 to 4 months of design and engineering time. I think 4 months is kind of what we've estimated at this point. So, and then bidding and permitting approval, we're projecting at the quickest, if we vote in April, that we would be able to start construction in October. And there's about a 10-month gap between construction dollars now versus October dollars when it would be bid. And so Lingo Construction tells us it fluctuates. Last couple of months ago it was 6.5%. They told me today I think it was 6%. So we've adjusted those numbers. So that is the escalation based on time in construction. And it's still, it used to not be that high, but right now it's just fluctuating at that. It's crazy. It's 6.5%, 6%. It can't keep up with inflation.
For 8 months or 12
10 months. Yeah.
6% in less than a year.
Yeah. Well, that 6% is, it'd be 10/12
Annualized,
of 6%. That 6% is annual. So we multiply it times 10% and then we compound it to basically come up with that difference. I think it's around 113,000, something like that. We're doing one for Union City right now on about a $22 million project, and we're escalating it at about 18 to 20 months. So it ends up being almost like $600,000 in escalation costs. So I mean, it can be a lot. It can be a lot, sure. So that is the number that you'll probably be talking with Ron about in a little bit or later. But that, my assumption is if this is the project that gets bonded or use bond funds for, that is the number that we feel like, you may want. Now it's got contingency, it's got stacked contingency just to safeguard numbers. We don't think it's overinflated, but it does kind of create some buffer until we know a little bit more about what we're doing. Any questions about STEM building? So the next one is the athletic facilities. This one's more complicated. And Lingo was planning to be here this evening. We talked with them, was that this morning?
This morning, yeah.
Yeah, early this morning. They've got Christmas things with kids and they were conflicting, and so they probably made the right decision to go spend time with their grandkids and kids. So we agreed that I would help present this information for them. So what we asked them to do, and I think it's the right way to do it for where we're at in the athletic facilities, but it's to use not quite the same level of detail that they've estimated for the STEM building. We know a lot more about the STEM building based on the fact that we've done the building. We did the building originally, they built the building originally. We just know more about it, so they can use a higher level of estimating. With this, they're using more historical square foot costs, but they're not just saying it's 1,000 square feet and it's $400 a square foot. Well, here's the cost. They actually break down the components. That's what's included in the spreadsheet that's in front of you. What I'm gonna do is just kind of walk you through, and it's range. So we try to give in this case, a low range and a high range, and then green on your spreadsheet is a kind of a median or average of those two. So starting with, and the order is a little funky on here, I apologize. They did their estimate, and then I set the PowerPoint up to follow their estimate so you wouldn't have to flip pages as much. So football locker room, so this is renovation primarily, but a little bit of expansion for offices. So low and high range there, 736 to 888. And again, the details in the backup that you have. And then when we shift up here to the expansion, so this is new construction, as well as some site work related to the future courtyard because of the way that we feel like the sequencing of construction needs to happen is 1.4 to 1.5, and I'll use some rounded numbers when I'm talking. And don't think of this as order as far as construction either, right? We talked about that last month. So then this is also renovation. These buildings exist. So boys and girls soccer, locker rooms, coaches' offices, and then kind of one of the flex spaces for middle school. So renovation of those areas, 747 to 880. Shift over to baseball. So this is baseball locker room, and it's expansion on the I guess the northeast. Yeah, northeast, sort of. It's kind of at an angle. And then renovation of the existing plus additional space, kind of overhang area out front. 548 to 632 is the low and the high range. We'll stay on the same slide, but shifting right up here to the press box and concessions, range is 317 to 365. It seems like a big number compared if you're thinking about what's out there. But what's out there is, it's not great. I mean, we renovated it a few years ago, and it made it better. But it's not comparative to what would be built softball when you think about when we're getting ready to see softball in a minute. So we're trying to kind of create some level playing field out there. 317 to 365 for that. Then we shift over to the softball area. So this is not just press box and concessions, but it's obviously got, sorry, I can't see that very well.
No, you're good.
It's got locker rooms, coaches' offices, training facilities, restrooms. So that's a much bigger facility, but it's a little over $1 million up to 1.2. And then back down here, this is existing space that would be renovated, locker area, middle school flex space, 139, 155 is the range. Now we're going to look at so we had this kind of grouped together with the track, but after discussions this morning, we kind of pulled it out just because the goal after you have these numbers is to begin to prioritize. And you've got lots of numbers, some are big, some are small, but how you prioritize is going to be based up to the board and the athletic department and the administration to decide what's the highest priority, is the next highest priority, what can we afford, what can we group together potentially. And I'll stop right here. I should have said this at the beginning. There are really two different directions that the numbers can go, these numbers. So STEM building is pretty well locked into what we've got unless something changes with the scope. With these numbers, if you combine projects to get, these numbers are as though each project is its own independent little project. So you got overhead situations, general conditions, equipment rental. If you combine projects together, those general conditions, those overhead costs will come down. Mm-hmm. So you have an ability to impact numbers going down if you combine projects together. You also have the potential for these numbers to go up because of time. So that same 6% is applied to any of these on an annual basis until they're done, or until you decide, obviously, if you're going to not do it, then that's another deal. But if you decide to do something 5 years from now, that's 6% per year compounded. Now, again, that number may go down to 5, or may go up to 7, or may go down to 4%, depending on the economy and demand and supply and all that. But we broke this number out specifically in case there was the need to do the track separate from the football field replacement. And so this is specifically just the infield replacement area, and that there's some cost associated with breaking those apart because you've got different drainage systems for each one. But right now, if it's just the infield area, 1.442, 1.685 on the low and the high range for that. Now when you go to the outside
Hey
and look
Troy, I have a
yes.
question for you about that.
Yes.
So if you do the infield like that, and you do the infield, you've got the track that seem related and connected somehow. What about the bleachers? I
Yeah,
mean, is the
yeah.
bleachers
We talked
connected
about that
to?
this morning.
Yeah. So
Um,
is that connected to that too? Like
it
all
is.
that might be a,
We'll look at the number, the bleacher number, and which includes the bleachers, but it also includes the press box and the concession tied together.
on that side.
On this side,
Yeah.
correct. And then we're relocating the existing home
Right.
bleachers over here to become visitors bleachers. The challenge, if we decide we need to do the track, for instance, but hold off on the infield, and maybe we don't have the money to do the bleachers, that becomes more challenging because we're now working around an existing set of bleachers to put in a brand new track. We've expanded the track, we've made it bigger overall in terms of space because we've added a lane. We've straightened the field just because of the orientation, trying to make it fit within, the constraints of softball. This corner, they're fitting in the existing bleachers into this area, trying to not get into the SNU side of things too much. So it fits within the context of new bleachers. But as soon as we start thinking about a new track and leaving the existing bleachers, I'm not saying it can't be done, I'm just saying it's going to create some challenges that we'll have to, I don't know that I have an answer for you today about how to address that. One of the things that I think we're gonna have to do pretty quickly, once we decide, to get started on anything out here, is we need to get a more accurate, updated survey of this property. We have some old survey information, things have been updated, you wouldn't think the survey, well, it's, the same stuff that's been sitting there, why has it changed? It's just, things have changed, the technology has even changed since that survey work was done. We need a more accurate depiction of what's there. That will help us determine what we can and can't do if the track is done without the bleacher renovation or expansion.
Okay.
Okay, flipping ahead then to track and field replacement. So that basically includes fencing, it includes the track itself, a couple of the inside the track areas related to high jump, and we've got pole vault and long jump. We've even got our steeplechase up here that we talked about a month ago. And then I believe we've got a new sidewalk. So anything that kind of connects the sidewalk to the entry down here as by baseball, softball, and then also the entry sidewalk as it goes around to the main entry there. All of that's wrapped up into that project. Fencing, lots of fencing in this one, 1.5 to 1.6. Baseball field replacement, so this stays turf, but then we've got infield and the wings replaced with a synthetic turf, and we're at 641 to 759. So Lingo has been in contact with the company that initially Bethany had reached out to get some estimates, and so when the time comes to bid the work, we'll actually go and competitively bid the actual materials for the replacement. But to get estimates, we use the same company that Bethany had been using in the past. So right now, though, that 641 to 760 for baseball. Softball is a full replacement, infield and outfield, 683 to 801. This was a strange one. So it wasn't listed or broken out separately. To me, I feel like this would need to probably go hand in hand with the softball expansion or the new construction out here. It's basically the site work that's related to that, so 102 to 135. It partially depends on if you do the bleacher replacements before you did this building up here, we would need to do some of that work. But we can't just leave it out. We have to have that somehow done, whether it's wrapped up into bleacher replacement or whether it's wrapped up, or it could be split, depending on when you guys decide to do that. Ideally, you'd want to do this and then the next one all together and have softball complete. I think that's, I gotta flip back to that one in a minute. So this is the football stadium branding. So this is your new, you guys remember from the renderings, the kind of purple fencing screen materials in front of the buildings, the new ticket booth, the new entry areas, the new gates. That's all extends all the way from here all the way up to there. It also includes, rather than including this with the track and field, we decided to include it with that. We can swap those numbers around, but 585 to 621. I will say that we'll get an update to this, out to you for this, but there was a ticket booth, no, I'm sorry, the press box for the bleachers was inadvertently put into the number for the branded gate entry, and so it's included over here, it needs to be flipped. So the number's accounted for, it's just in the wrong bucket, and so we'll get you an update on that. And then if we move now, okay, this is the other branded gate entry down kind of near the baseball area, 20 to 23,000 for that. This is kind of a discussion that was had at one point about doing some kind of updated branding on the two metal buildings that are out there. It's essentially paint and brand and logos and just an update of the facades there. Nothing with changing materials or anything like that, but 66,000. Okay, so this is our bleacher and press box relocation shifting around. So this is the number that should have included the press box. So these numbers don't reflect that, but 1.67 to 1.8. So that would have to go up by about 30,000, and the other one would go down. And then baseball, okay, so bleachers for baseball, we're not doing any swapping, we're just replacing the baseball bleachers themselves, 37 to 44. Softball, we're actually flipping, so we're moving the home bleachers to the visiting side, and then we're putting in new home bleachers. That was 43 to 51. Lingo had questions about, are we touching the canopies or the awnings and any of that, and our response was no. The intent is to try to fit bleachers within the existing structure. So just be aware that it's seats, not anything above you or around you. So this basically then kind of trickles down and adds up all to the total construction cost. So the low range, the high range, that's the lingo, that's the hard cost. So if I'm looking at that STEM, comparing the categorization to the STEM building we looked at, this is the hard lingo numbers. Then if we just kind of generally put about, I think Lingo had estimated about 20% for everything from design to FF&E as furniture, fixtures, equipment, and any of those other soft costs, those additional owner costs, at about 20%. So that adds a pretty big number to that. And then there, because again, we're a little bit in the unknown category right now on some of these, a contingency allowance in there at about 5%. So a low and a high, and then kind of a median at about 12.5 million. I was even a little bit hesitant to show the combined numbers, because unless you're doing it all at once, right now, these don't have a whole lot of meaning, but it gives you some sense of scale, maybe. I mean, I think that was the idea, was let's go ahead and put it in there, give you a sense of scale and magnitude of what this is. But again, if you're only going to do 2 or 3 of these picked out, maybe in this next cycle or this next coming couple of years or something, whenever it's done, the things that will impact it is the general conditions. If we can combine projects, general conditions allows the number to go down. And then, of course, the longer you leave, I've never seen construction numbers go down. Do you ever see construction numbers go down? We thought that COVID would, had 16 to 17, 20% increases on an annual basis. I mean, that those numbers we saw. We thought for sure, that numbers would drop back down. All they did was just slow down. They didn't. They still went up. They just are going up at a slow rate. And so we're just not seeing those numbers go down like everybody kind of predicted that might happen. And we're sitting at almost 5 years, 4.5, 5 years outside of COVID, and still seeing those numbers. So anyway, that's it, I believe. Yes. So any questions of me about the athletic complex budgets?
Is that last number include the STEM as well, or is that just athletic?
No,
okay.
Separate. Our expectation and understanding is that the bond will primarily be tied to the STEM building. So we wanted to isolate it and treat it independently. And it's kind of an all or nothing kind of a project. I mean, pretty much. This one has got, it's a menu of what you want to try to accomplish. And so we tried to set it up in a way that the athletic staff and the administration, the district leadership could just try to decide what their own internal priorities are and make decisions based on, and funding availability, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, I mean, the goal was to get to a number with all of these things. So thank you for doing it the way you did it, in a way that allows us to see pieces, because anybody who sees that knows that's not a number that we're gonna be able to hit, right? But we also know that we have some needs and that we've got to start somewhere, and this is our starting point, and gives us pieces of things that we can look at and start to be strategic with and have conversations about. And we had to have this to kind of start that process. So this gives us that starting point. Appreciate all your work and thinking through it, working with our staff to get to a place of what the needs were and possible solutions. And so just appreciate, you know, you kind of following that goal to get us to a place to where we've got a lot more conversation to have, but
I
we've
gotta
got
tell you, my
something
head
to
was
talk
spinning when we first started talking about all the different ideas about what wanted to be accomplished out here. So I'm just, even trying to be able to organize it in a systematic way was, I think, hopefully helpful. I will say, just as a cross-check, Dane and I looked at the numbers for the STEM building in terms of the raw construction compared to the total. And those numbers were about 22%. Does that sound about right? 22%. So this is 25% out here. So increasing the base raw construction by 25 is not probably out of the realistic world of realism. I mean, I think that's probably pretty good estimate. It's conservative. But just to give you a comparison, STEM is about 22% of the raw construction. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5, discussion of bonds by Ron Fisher.
I don't have cool technology because I'm not that cool. So I've got old school handouts. And there's a little bit of history that I'll kind of go into to kind of show how we got to where we are right now.
Okay.
And then just give you some examples. And don't fixate on the numbers. This is just an example, and it's really more, concept than anything else. When we did the last financing, which was in 2020, we assumed that there wasn't going to be any growth in the net assessed valuation. And that was really kind of a PR rationale. We were approaching this about as conservatively as we could. When we told them, it's not going to be a tax increase, like I said, we used what we hoped were higher interest rates, and in hindsight, so far they turned out to be higher projections than what you actually received, at least back in the early days. Because again, this was in the middle of COVID. The problem that led to is you've actually grown, look at the first page, your millage rate, or I'm sorry, your net assessed valuation was $17,678,000. And if you look at the third page, your valuation now is $23,223,000. So you actually went up about 30% since then. And one of the things that we've been doing is we've been accelerating the issuance of your bonds to keep your millage rate up. Because otherwise, as your valuation increases, if you don't do something with your debt service on your bonds, the sinking fund decreases. And then when you come back and try to vote something else, it looks like a tax increase. So again, what we've been doing is we've been accelerating it. And if you'll look, let's see, this would be the 5th page back, I believe, and it's one that's just a lot of green. This is what's left on your most recent financing. So we've still got 9 series of bonds left on this existing financing. Our original target millage rate was 41.97. Because we've been accelerating the issuance, the millage rate this year is 41.5. So we're pretty close to our target. If we don't accelerate something, or if we don't issue additional bonds, next year it's going to drop down to 27. And we're not gonna let that happen. We're either gonna accelerate some of the stuff that's already authorized, or you can come in and vote and get your millage rate and just maintain that same target of 41.97. So the example I looked at, and if you'll flip the page one more time. So the green is the same, that's your already authorized. The orange would be new money. And it would basically be a new revenue bond financing. And it's structured so it would come off the tax rolls at the same time as your current one. And the only rationale is we just didn't know how far you guys might want to go out. So again, don't get fixated on my numbers. That's just a talking point. I always tell people, because as soon as I mention numbers, people lock in and think that's what it is, and it's not. There are a lot of things that can go into this. So this is 5 series of bonds. First series would be in June of 25. Last series would be in June of 33, and its last year on the tax rolls would be 34.35. And right now, mathematically, that's keeping your millage rate at around the 41.97 mils. If we did that type of financing and assuming the same, well, this one's actually non-rated, so it's good. Assumptions on the interest rate on a revenue bond financing, all these different things, the projected funds available for your projects would be 2.378 million. And again, that's, would barely cover the STEM project at this point. The one thing, again, if you'll flip back that previous page, when all of these come off the tax rolls, the following year, you're gonna be able to start issuing about 1.1 million in bonds every year. So at that point, you're gonna be able to start issuing much bigger chunks. We did some other projections, and we went out to 2041, still keeping the millage rate at the same target, and that generated 6.6. So at this point, I don't know that there is a mechanism to get to 13 million. Like I said, going out to 41 got you 6.6. And there's not a lot of room to increase your millage rate. So there's going to be a little bit of a challenge, and it's one of those, like Troy said, you guys have to prioritize, what you want to do, how far you want to go out, because you don't have to go out to 41. You don't have to stop at 33. You can do something in between. If you decide you need $3 million, well, then I just rerun the numbers till we generate $3 million. So that's kind of what we're here to kind of really talk about, is how much you need, and then I'll figure out what we can do to get you there. And I don't know if there's again, you may not want to go beyond 10 years. I know we do revenue bond financings, and I think we've got one that may be 22 years. And they wanted to keep the millage rate down, marketed as a no tax increase, so they just went longer. And of course, the longer you go out, the less you get up front. Because if you're present valuing something from 20 years, out, if it's $1 million payment, you may only get 500,000. Because you've got to pay the cost of borrowing that money for that length of time too. It's just like your mortgage. When you build a house, you may have $100,000 to build your house, but over 30 years you've paid $350,000, and it's the same mechanism. So you just have to decide, what the priorities are, and then, like I said, we'll back into what the election amount would be. We're looking at issuing these bonds. The first series would be in June, and in order to do that, that means we have to vote in April. The April 1st is the election date, and the filing deadline is January 30th. And I know you've got one more regular board meeting between now and then. But if we need to have special meetings to talk about it, you know, we're fine with that, or if you don't think you can get it finalized by the, I can't remember, yours is the 10th of January, or when your regular meeting in January would be. But, you know, we could have a special meeting after that if we need to. So like I said, we have until the 30th. It's just we can't wait till after April because of the legal timelines that go into the bond issue, we can't get it sold and closed by the end of June. And if we don't, then we lose a levy year, which totally changes the tax structure.
I have a question. Okay. Because I don't know very much about this at all. I'll just admit that going in. So when you were determining the net assessed valuations, that's the property valuations in the school district, correct? So has there been any kind of a look-see to see what percentage of the property contained in our school district is not available to be taxed?
Not really, because we get all our information from the Oklahoma County Assessor's Office, and it's if it's not on the tax rolls,
We don't get it,
have a record.
right? Because I'm just thinking there's quite a bit of untaxable property
Right.
in our very small school district.
Mhm.
And so there's no concession for that, I guess, with regard to your calculations.
No.
I mean,
there's
it
not.
is what it is.
Yeah, because the way the Constitution works for bond issues, when you issue an individual series of bonds, you have to be within the 10% limit of your net assessed valuation.
I see.
Doesn't matter if there's a TIF, doesn't matter if it's exempt, you know, if you've got all kinds of property, it doesn't matter if it's not on the tax rolls. It's only on what is on the tax rolls, and that's what's paying the tax.
At the time that you issue the bond.
Mhm. And like I said, and I don't know if the assessor's office, they probably do have record of what their tax exempt stuff is, but they don't put it on the,
Right. I mean, I think it's a significant amount
Yeah.
of real estate in our small little area that we don't get taxes on, so it doesn't go towards our,
yeah.
that's kind of the, you know, wondering if there's a workaround on that in any way.
I'm not aware of any, there's not any like state in lieu of payments that I'm aware of for tax exempt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of the same thing, the school district is also tax exempt,
Right.
you know, so, you know, does the city of Bethany want to start getting taxes from the school to help pay their debt? You know, it's one of those, once you kind of start going into it, it gets tricky,
Sure.
yeah, so.
So we're always gonna have that limitation. I mean, we're never gonna, we can't really expand our school district,
Kind
you know?
of the only workaround that there's been is the Red Bud Fund, is kind of in lieu of the fact that we're so constrained. Then the state started giving some
Money
building
from that
money
fund. I see.
a couple
Yeah.
of years ago. Till then, there was,
There was
this
nothing.
was it.
Super.
Yeah, and I think that was intended for basically like public service, you know, especially.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah, but it's the
other,
same,
but
yeah.
it's the same type of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we're benefiting from it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those, you know, it's the same thing, of course, Oklahoma City, an area has so many TIFs. I can't even remember how many, we do bond issues for Metro Tech, and I've got to every year go in and figure out all the TIFs that impacts Metro Tech, and, because we have to like add it in to take it out, to show the Attorney General's office that we thought about it. Yeah, it's a mess. I'm not a big fan of TIFs and other, obviously with Southern Nazarene and things like that, you know, there's not much you can do. And unless at some point Southern Nazarene somehow became a taxable entity, you know, at that point, you know, all their property. But, and it seemed like when they did some addition, not that long
To
ago.
the retirement center, which is taxable.
Right,
Is it?
Yes, because it's in a for-profit
Right,
business.
right,
so-
right.
okay, yeah. So that's, again, that's another complication. Even though Southern Nazarene may be tax exempt, they may have property that's taxable and is on the tax rolls. And it's the same thing with the tribes. You know, which you guys don't have a casino that I'm aware of, but some of the casinos, especially if they have
Yeah.
a golf course or hotel with it, some of that will be taxable. You know, there's not a
I don't
a
know
good
where we
mechanism.
put it.
Yeah.
We're all filled up.
Yeah.
Roof for children's.
Yeah, you do have a unique situation in Bethany.
Put it between the church and university, right? It's totally
Who said that?
In theory, you mentioned, keeping our millage rate up, and doing some things to do that each year, accelerating those. How long, in theory, about could you do that, until you hit a point where you have to do something to keep that millage rate up?
We can probably keep moving it. The way you're going, we might have to totally use one of the final series and maybe even the last two and sell those a year or two early. Which, that's not a bad thing, because that means it comes off the tax rolls that much sooner and you can come back with a bigger amount earlier.
Yeah, raise more money.
Right. And again, it's just one of those, how do you want to manage it? Yeah. So like I said, we can manage it if you don't have an election. We can manage it if you do have an election. You know, so there's, from that standpoint, it's not like, oh, we got to do something.
Okay, so help me out on that. What triggers the election then? If I'm changing the bonding capacity or the bonding, what we want to raise from the bonding?
So the way millage works is every year your budget maker looks at what your debt service requirement is.
Right.
And debt service is your principal and interest. And then they'll look at your valuation and determine what millage rate will generate that much money. So what we've been doing is we've been changing the way we're levying to the principal. So we're getting more principal paid back earlier. And what that does, that means the next year there's a natural drop. So if we don't put another one in there, your millage rate's gonna bottom out and come back up. So we're moving that in, but if you look at that one page, like I said, next year, if we don't do anything, it's gonna drop down to about 27, and then it's gonna hover around that until they're paid off. So that's what's allowing us to either vote additional bonds and come in there and make up that difference of about 12 mills
Right.
each year. Now, when they all come off, instead of 12 mills, that's gonna be 42 mills. So again, that's a much bigger bond issue. It's just a lot farther down the line. So again, it's almost like making minimum payments on a credit card for several years until you start being able to make a lot bigger payments. And I'm not sure if that answers the
Yeah,
question or not.
and the other thing, the reason for the vote
Uh-huh.
is because you have
You have to-
additional money. They've authorized us to
So
borrow
many
all the
funds.
money in green.
Yeah.
If you want to go borrow additional money for new projects, and we have to tell them what
Right.
pretty much what
Projects
the projects are gonna be.
Which would be the
That's
yellow.
the orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there only,
But we can do it based on this and keep the tax rate the same for all the homeowners.
Yeah, that it's not a tax increase.
Right.
Or decrease.
right, is there
Right.
only one option for an election each year? for bond
No,
election?
there are, in odd numbered years, there are 11. In even numbered years, when we have the general elections, it's closer to 7, but a couple of them are in the summer. And then this year, we of course had the presidential election, so that kind of took away, we basically had 3 this year in presidential election years. And again, the reason we're looking at that April one is if we wanted to get the money in June, so go on the tax rolls next year, or I mean, yeah, in 25, that's the latest we can vote. But if you want to take more time to think about it and fine tune it, then yes, we can vote later. We can accelerate one of the other issues to keep your millage up in the interim. And then when you do vote, we've still got a gap. So it's just shifting it 1 year, but everything still works the same way.
Or don't they vote in March and February as well?
They could,
We may have missed the deadline for, I know the deadline for February is tomorrow,
right, and the deadline for March is January 2nd.
January 2nd, so
Yeah.
then we'll have another board meeting
Right, between now and then.
And so you're saying that you think the maximum for the next 10 years we could raise would be 3 million, given our bonding capacity?
Yeah, and again, the reason for that is a lot of your bonding capacity is already,
Right, already
Accounted
taken up
for.
in the green.
right.
So I think, I mean, this gives us a good idea of just kind of where we're at, and I would say, we're where we're at for very important projects, very important reasons. We've got a storm shelter for all our kids, and we didn't have that, so it's all been great things, but we've got a new list of things and things we would like to see or hope to see, and just trying to get a picture of all the different options or non-options. As they would be, but with this particular one, we have a lot of varying options. As he mentioned, there's some options now to get some. There's some options later to get a little bit more. There's some options to get more now if you want to go further out. But I would, advise the board that comes with its own risk, because you put yourself in this situation longer. Where you don't have a lot of room for big projects. One good thing about Bethany is that we're stable as far as our numbers. Other districts have to worry about building new high schools and middle schools as their population communities grow, and we don't have that need, so or that issue. So we know kind of who we are and where we are. It's just a matter of how do we improve it, maintaining what we already have. So, but it does have some unique challenges, as you talked about the valuation of things and the funding of things. It has some challenges, and certainly, these numbers are challenging numbers and going to take a lot of strategic thought and concessions maybe in some cases, but it's a great place to start. I appreciate you coming tonight to kind of give us an idea and to give the board an idea of things that we do have options. We just got to be very strategic with those options and decide which is the best route for the district. So we can continue to have those conversations.
And we always have to caveat it, all the stuff we do, and Troy kind of alluded to, they're projections. Whether it's the cost of the project, until you open bids, you're not gonna know. On the projections on how much you would get up front for those bond issues, you don't really know. I think the consumer price index comes out tomorrow and the producer price index comes out on Thursday, and both of those are gonna kind of affect how fast the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates. If the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, that means theoretically you would get more money. If they don't raise or lower them as fast as people thought they were, then you would get less money. If President Trump's tariffs kick in, that's inflationary pressure, which is going to make them not want to lower the interest rates. It's also going to drive the cost of construction materials up. So your project costs are going to go up. So there's, like I said, take it all with a grain of salt, because there are a lot of things in play, and there will be until the contracts are signed. And unfortunately, that's how it always is. In school bonds, you vote, you have to call the election 60 days before the election. You have to do estimates based on a bond sale that's going to occur several months in the future, that's going to go on the tax roll next year. So again, that's why we always try to do stuff conservatively. Because nobody calls and says my taxes were lower than what I expected. But if it's a penny more, I mean, you're all gonna hear about it. So, you know, again, that's just kind of how we approach stuff.
So when do we have to make a decision on that?
So,
Is that tonight?
again, no. So, we would be able to make a decision at our next board. It's January 14th is our next, we would be able to make a decision at that point. We could also call a special board meeting, January 30th, I believe.
January 30th is the filing deadline for the March 2nd, or April 1st board, or April 1st election, yes. Sorry, I was thinking about the March one too, but again, that's January 2nd is the filing deadline for that, so.
Yeah. So that, and again, what I would also say is, none of this is presumed, you know, as far as which direction we go, because there's a lot of variables, and we have a lot of choices as far as how we go. So I don't want you guys as a board thinking, you know, that we are presuming, hey, we're doing this or we're doing this. We're still in that same phase of strategically trying to figure out what is our best option, short term and long term. And long term's a big aspect of it too. So at this point, as we sit here today, it's gathering all the information. We'll have those conversations about, again, short term, what do we want to accomplish? Long term, what do we hope to maintain as options for down the road? So, and that's exactly where we're at, is where you guys are at. We're not thinking beyond the information we gathered at this meeting, really, but we will need to have some conversations very quickly between now and January. So we'll look forward to kind of having some of those conversations.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Item 6, consent agenda. Anybody have anything on minutes? No. And then we have contracts, Children's Center contract, which is not really anything major different, other than
No,
race.
we had Andy review the contract like we normally do. We had changed the name to Bethany Children's Health Center in the contract because we thought that's what they wanted, but then they came back and said, no, they wanted the Children's Center Inc. So the only thing that's changed in it is the name of the institution.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Legal name versus DBA name.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Right.
We have all those out of town, out of state, overnight trips.
Yeah.
That's all standard
All state
stuff.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fun stuff there.
Yeah.
We had some additional activity funds. So anything else, questions or anything on consent agenda? Not all. Take a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Roll call vote.
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 7. Oops, jumped on me.
What about the financial fund reports? Did we go over that?
Those are part of
Where are
Yeah,
they?
that's part of the consent
Oh,
agenda.
there is 6E. That's right.
I can just give
We
you.
approved them already, but.
Yeah, sorry, I should have jumped in, but
I
I
wasn't-
didn't know, so.
I wasn't,
it.
it wasn't on my screen. I don't know why I
It
didn't
seems
see
like
it.
it's usually
Um,
set outside of that.
For activity fund, it looks good. You will see one negative on boys baseball. We just had some deposits that weren't put in yet, so it's when I ran the report, so activity fund's doing well. Nobody's in the negative. And then we are doing good. If you flip to the function summary report, we're doing good. We're staying with our budget, so that's all looking pretty good. In terms of collections, we still haven't seen a lot of tax dollars come in yet. We should start seeing more coming in January. We're still receiving our state aid like we should. We did finally receive some of the first federal dollars from Title I and Title IV, and some special education federal funding come in this month. So I don't think it's going to show up on here today because we just got it this week, but we did finally get some come in, so you should see it in January, which is good. And I'll take any questions you might have.
So with the taxes, is that typical? It's in January when we get most of
We
those?
start getting,
Is it?
more larger sums start
Okay.
coming in. We'll get tax money all throughout the rest of the school year. And we even get some that comes in the next fiscal year that was supposed to come in this fiscal year. But we start getting a little bit larger chunks, I think.
Yeah, they don't send the bills out till late November or early December,
Yeah.
so. Okay, item 7, encumbrances. Questions on those?
On 529, what's the South PAC replacement? HVAC unit?
Yeah, so we have an HVAC unit at the Performing Arts Center that is
Okay.
going out, and that's how they listed it. And you're going to see this on both the general fund list and the building fund list. I like putting them in both so that when it gets down to us paying them, I decide which one we're going to go out. It's not two, it's just one. And I'll kind of make the decision based on when we're paying that bill where I think the best place for it to come out of is. But it's gone out. It's time for it to be. It's limping. It's on its last leg.
Is that was that a newer unit when we built that then, I guess?
That's what I don't remember. See, I think that may be one that we took off and put back,
Put back on?
and then we added one or something like that. I don't remember
Hope
exactly.
it's not a new one.
It is not a new one.
Okay.
It is a much older one.
Yeah, sorry, I
Okay.
think it was the one that was
much-
on the
It's
original
not a new
report.
one. I know that. I don't know how old it is,
But
but
it's old.
it's older.
Good.
Yeah.
So it'd be back to the high school, when the high school was built.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. About 552 on sodding of the fields. Is that something we've done every year, is sod the fields? I don't recall, overseeding and things like that, but.
Yeah.
But it's,
No, so, it's been a journey. It looks as bad as it's ever looked. And we're at a place now where there's not really an option to fix it except for to sod it. And so we contacted a very reputable company to kind of tell us, how can we fix this field, have any chance for it to be ready for soccer also, because right now it's not playable for soccer at all. So there are a lot of options. There are cheap ways to go about it that may not have a lot of chance for success, and then there's this option, which I would tell you this is the option that two reputable sod companies would tell us this is your best option as far as getting the field right. Now I will say we don't know exactly past history what happened to the field. There's stories about something, some grass not dying and some things not happening that maybe got it to this place, but then also just there was a lot of use of it over the past year or two. But ultimately it's gotten to a place where it's hard to recover it at this point. So sodding it seems to be, and what we're hearing from multiple people is this is really our only option to have a chance to get it back.
So how much of the field, I'm just curious, how much sod do you get for $23,000?
Yeah, so right now the biggest area
marks or
is
something?
between the hash marks end zone to end zone is where it needs it. So this would be that area.
You
And-
sod it in the winter?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I think of.
No,
How
yeah.
we can be ready for the spring?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've asked about that too, and we've been told that we can still do this now and still be successful with it. So that was my surprise, is that there's enough left to have it sit. And really, they said we don't have to stay off of it very long, but we do need to stay off it for a time. But yeah, and I will go further to say, I mean, this is a company that we have not used in the past, but does professional fields, college fields. So this is a little more than maybe what we would have looked at in the past, but it's for this reason that we don't want to spend another, say, $13,000 on it and be right where we're at. So this is the best chance. And then I would go even further to say, I'm very curious to see how this goes, because that also may affect future decisions and those decisions that we need to make, which are very much more expensive when you talk about turf and things like that. So this is also, in my mind, a way to see, is this a viable long-term solution? Because if the field can't maintain better than it is now, that elevates the priority of something like turf on that field in particular, where you got youth football, soccer all year long,
And band,
summer, band from time to time, and really, like, band right now is a lot in the parking lot to stay off of it. And so, if you had something like turf, you could put the band on it a little more often. But ultimately, this is a significant difference in cost to the turf that we just saw as well. So, and some people prefer the look of turf, some people prefer the playing of natural, grass. And so I think for us, this is, and talking to Mr. Nyberg and the companies, we would like to see how this goes for our field, to see if this is an option. If we use a company that's reputable and we have them guide us and advise us, which we've not always done, does this give us a chance to have a nice playable surface? This also includes like recrowning, all the, so it is really a start over between the hashes, which is what it needs. So
Last year was very bumpy to play soccer on, so the ball would be rolling and would be bumping everywhere, which is not ideal when you're playing soccer and you're trying to kick it with precision. So I'm hopeful. When I heard that it was damaged even more so than what it was last year, I was concerned about it. So I'm hoping this will work out great for us.
Yeah.
Has the number of teams that use that field, has that increased a lot this year?
It really hasn't. Our we have a youth football that uses it from time to time, but it wasn't significantly more than they had used it the year before. Now, what we don't know, and we even had them try to, and they practiced in other fields, so this is just game. They really had 4 weekends of games. We tried, during practice times, practice in different sections of the field. I know, football did that, and all of our people that use it tried to vary where they were at, so they weren't just always down the middle. But so it hasn't gotten significantly more use, but it has gotten more use in the past 2 years than it had prior to that. And so that is a question we have too, is it sustainable if everything is done correctly? And that's kind of what we'd like to see.
When did we move soccer over there?
So in the past, what you're saying is we really haven't
3 years ago?
I mean, we've just kind of,
So
we've seeded it, we've overdressed it,
Yep.
we've just done the general,
Yes.
what I would do in my yard.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
And that's worked fine
Yeah.
for a lot of years. It just,
But it's time.
it's at a different
but
place.
soccer was over at SNU.
Yeah, oh yeah, I recall, only
Till
3
3
years
years
now or
ago.
something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's much better there. It needs to be there.
Yeah, yeah.
If
Yeah.
we get the right field.
Yeah.
And we do have some track events, and sometimes
yeah.
people are in the middle doing stuff. I'm not sure if that does anything, but it is people on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think, for the later conversation of prioritizing athletic facilities, things like that, I think this will tell us a little bit more about turf, and I mean, is it something that we really need to prioritize? If I'm being honest with you, there's a part of me that says I would love to do some other things, because that's not cheap either. You saw, 1.6 or so million for just for that. Well, there are a lot of other things we could do but we also have to have a good field to play all of our things on. So hopefully this is the solution and long-term solution, and it creates opportunities or options down the road. Even if we want a turf, at least it's an option at that point, not something we just have to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion to approve the encumbrances as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 8, discussion and possible action on a payment of mid-year retention stipend in the amount of $500 for all certified and support staff.
We approved this last month, but after talking to the auditor, they wanted me to be more specific and say that it was a retention stipend, and who specifically it was for, so I have added that language.
Make a motion to approve the mid-year retention stipend for all certified and support staff.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 9, discussion and possible action to approve the district's capacity of students in each grade at each school site as presented.
So the only thing here, as you can see, there's no capacity at this point. We did add an intra-district category, which is interesting for us because we don't have intra-district transfers, but the advice we received was to go ahead and put that on there because it's a new law that districts are required to have an intra-district reporting of what you're offering as a part of that law. So we just add that category. It'll always be 0, and it'll just kind of be a column on the report moving forward. Everything else is no capacity and same as last time. Numbers may have changed, slightly in buildings. We did adjust those, but nothing that would take us to a place of accepting a transfer.
Motion to approve the district's capacity of students in each grade at each school site as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 9A, discussion and possible action to approve the additions of the following board policy, CA, management and accounting of funds.
This is just at the bottom. It has what allows us to accept electronic signatures. So we can just email them to you
That's great.
And this would go in place
immediately.
unlike the other policies that.
Make a motion to approve the addition of the board policy CA, management and accounting of funds.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 10, discussion and review of revisions to the board policies CWB through, what do we got, DER7.
So I'll go through just a couple of these quickly. If you have questions on others, let me know. The first one, CWB, death of a student, staff. This is something we don't currently have, but it sets some good groundwork for in situations like that as a district. What are some groundwork of things that we would do and some things that we wouldn't do, which is good to have when you're not in an emotional state, or the
Sure.
district is not an emotional state. So that's one. DBAA, there's actually 2 policies in there. That was we went back and forth on some policies there, so only one of those will actually go through. But we are still working with them on editing some wording of duties within that, and to get that final version. So, but that's just technical stuff and how we apply it. DDCA, acceptance of letters of resignation. You'll see a little note at the bottom of that one. We're also still going back and forth on this one a little bit. Our current policy states that if someone turns in a letter of resignation to the superintendent, that letter is irrevocable, and the board then still acts on that letter of resignation at the next board meeting. That's similar to the language they had, but they also had within that, and I think you can see it struck out, or maybe they've sent us one without it struck out, this very technical letter part that said when a letter of resignation is received, that the superintendent would then send this very technical letter to the person resigning to acknowledge receipt of that letter of resignation. That's okay, but I don't think that fits our culture here. In a big district where you may not see me ever, right? It makes sense that I would let you know, hey, I got this. But here, they're usually handing that to me personally, or I'm going to their classroom to acknowledge. So it just seemed odd, and it was a very technical wording of that to say, hey, I got, I'm signing here, you sign here, that, certified. It's talked about sending it certified mail. It just didn't seem to fit. So I'm going back and forth with them a little bit on their side. Our current policy does not have anything like that. They're advising there's a little bit of risk that it could be challenged. And so we're just kind of going back and forth a little bit, because I don't feel like that second part of the certified letter that fits our culture. I see in the language at the top that it's irrevocable, so it is in the policy stated that way. So that's kind of where that's at. It's just not quite finalized. I would tell you, in the end, I don't want anything to be challengeable, but the way that policy currently is, it's worded very similarly, and we have not had issues with that in the past. So still trying to get some clarification on that. The DE-R1 talks about salary schedules. We did have them make some changes just about rehire pay. There were some different options, but the way we work with teachers who are retiring and rehiring is situational, and they had more like structured, like they're going to get paid X amount, or they have a salary schedule. We don't have that for retire rehire, so we just made that fit what we do. There's another part on there that talks about out of state and accepting years of experience. We have talked about what we would accept in the past, and teacher retirement accepts 5 years of experience out of state. We would like to match that with our contracts so that their years of service matches their teacher retirement, and so we basically put in there to accept the 5 years that they get out of state to match that. And that could look a lot of different ways. And then DE-R7 talks about direct deposit, and this would require people to do direct deposit, and that is allowable by law. We haven't always done it and we haven't done it that way to require that, but it is allowable, and it is probably a more common practice now. So that would put that into the policy. The rest of them are pretty standard and straightforward to what we already have as well. There is some additional details, as we've always talked about. The details are different as it comes to processes and forms, which is a good thing, but it doesn't really change anything. It just adds that detail to it.
Item 11, staff reports. Comments, questions?
Looking forward to Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah.
There will be additional elves this year too.
A lot of elves,
Right.
a lot of elves from Bethany.
That's great.
Something, I'll tell you that much. Elf on the Roof.
Okay.
I thought the aviation seemed
was great.
awesome.
It's unreal. We went to Wiley Post last week. It's just so cool to talk to them about what's going on, and it's just from the middle school to the high school is growing. Kids are interested and they love. Mr. Allen has been fantastic in there. He's really taken it by storm.
At Widely Post, was that where Miss America was? Is that right?
No, I think that was in Atlanta. We went to Atlanta for a big national
I'm sorry,
conference.
it included second. I don't know what that, if they looked at that or something.
Yeah, well, I was up there with them. We were in the top of the tower. We got to see all the stuff. I tried to put in some words to try to buy some land from them. They said no. But I tried my best. But they got to see, from the visual, like what the plane's taking off and coming in and all the stuff. It was really cool.
That's cool.
Okay. Do we need executive? I think we have to still do 12A, right, whether we do or not. Do we need to? Okay.
Yes.
So 12A, vote to convene or not convene in executive session.
Make a motion to not convene.
Second.
Executive session.
Roll call vote?
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 13, discussion of possible board action to employ extra duty employees in addendum A for the 24-25 school year.
Just one, right?
I'll make a motion to approve the employment of extra duty employees in addendum A for the 24-25 school year.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 14, discussing possible board action on the resignation of support employees in addendum B for the 24-25 school year.
Motion to approve the resignations of support employees in addendum B for 24-25 school year.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Jaggers,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes. Item 15, school accreditation.
Very good. So you'll
Very
see
good.
the report, particularly the second page. And I would just say to this, I want to thank the principals. I want to thank central office for their work on accreditation. I don't think it's something you ever take for granted at all, especially these days. And you can see, accreditation with no deficiencies across the board, and just a lot of detail goes into that. A lot of making sure that we're doing things the right way and reporting it the right way, and so just want to thank them for their time. It is not a light process at all, and I appreciate their diligence and doing it in such a way that we get a report like this.
Fantastic.
Item 16, informational items.
So we've got some things coming up. Our administration is hosting a Polar Express on December 12th. This is going to be fun to have staff come and be a part of. We also have our all-staff holiday party coming up December 16th at 3:30 p.m. And I want to say thank you to our foundation for helping sponsor some of that event as well. But that should be a lot of fun that we get to have as a staff as we go into the holiday season. And then I want to remind everyone the Holiday Craft Show and Holiday Market is December 14th. So that'll be coming up this weekend.
Item 17, board member comments. 18, superintendent's report.
Okay, just some celebrations real quick. One thing I would like to celebrate is, the best way I can say is our community. We always try to provide support for some of our families for Christmas and assistance. We have maybe about double the number of students that we would like to support this year and just provide assistance to. But you may have seen we weren't able to provide that support and fully, and we needed some help. And so we decided, I think our community would want to help with this, and we already had some people helping us, but we need a little more help. So we sent out an email. Within 2 hours, every single kid on that list was sponsored, and we had to start telling people, we're good, we got it covered now. But that just speaks to our community and what this community is about. We talk about the village program that we have internally and all the things that we do through student council and just partners we have in the community, but it's just neat to send something out like that. And again, it wasn't even just that it got covered. We weren't pulling teeth. It was within 2 hours, every single one of those kids was sponsored and taken care of, and we had to start turning people away. So just celebrate our community for that. Also want to celebrate the foundation, congratulate them on their impact auction. They posted out on their social media, they raised $94,477, and when they announced that number in the meeting, and principals can attest to that was not the number that I was prepared to go into, because we were talking about grants, things like that. my job out hit the floor. But I know that was a lot of hard work and a lot of effort that went into that. And once again, thankful to the community for showing up and auctioning for items and donating in that way, while they got some great things with it as well. But our foundation is instrumental in providing grants to our teachers, and once again, they came through big. And then I just want to thank our entire staff as we, near the end of the first semester. We have a lot of things to be proud of. Blue Ribbon, obviously, which shows we have great academic programs, pre-K through 12, to be getting things like that. But we also had a lot of success in athletics, in fine arts. Every time our band, choir, orchestra goes somewhere, we're getting used to hearing one, superiors, all those things. And it's so true, but then you see them perform, and you also see the difference, because I get an opportunity to see a lot of other people perform at different events, and every time I see our group perform, it just amazes me, with a school our size, with programs our size, what they're able to do. But I know it's because they work together all throughout the system, and our ability to do that is amazing. But just so proud of them during this season. We have a lot of programs, a lot of competitions, and they're going out in the community, and they're singing at malls and different places, and they just do such a great job representing Bethany when they do that. And we're starting into a new season, our winter season, with sports and activities, and looking forward to that as well. And that is my superintendent's report.
We're adjourned.